Welcome back. As metalworking industries develop, so do associated industries and products. One such industry is abrasive manufacturers, and it's expected that numerous new initiatives and developments will be seen throughout 2023. There are a couple of predictions for the year ahead, and as PFERD South Africa has mentioned. And for more on this, we are joined in studio by Phillips and Hannes Northman. Gentlemen, a very good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Morning. Thank you.
Hi, morning. Thanks for having us.
Good stuff. Dennis, I'm going to start with you. Before we get to the trends, let's talk about the state of, the metalworking industry in South Africa.
Well, it's in a difficult place at the moment, understand with the economic conditions. And so it's battling really hard.
Okay, what could have possibly pushed it to the state that it is now?
Well, economics are really, really important. People are having to do more with less money available.
Yeah.
So it becomes very difficult to keep trend and to follow on,
right.
with the way the industries are moving.
Okay. Now, Hans, let's talk about these trends and the amount of research that went into, compiling these figures.
Yeah. I think in general, if we have to have a look at the general research, we have to understand the metalworking industry to a very large extent. So when we develop these trends, we have a look at what's currently happening in the market, economic factors.
Yeah.
We're having a look at what general surveys, so you put surveys out, you've got surveys with regards to the metalworking industry. And this is how we compile these trends. And it's also built a lot on expertise, knowledge. I think it's important to understand, being in the industry for a very long time, it just helps you with setting these trends and actually reading the markets to a very large extent.
Let's talk about, how efficient utilization of resources in the face of load shedding will be required. Dennis?
Your resources that you have available to you are basically your people, your products that you have, and your manufacturing facilities. So you've got to consistently upgrade the people, you've got to consistently upgrade the manufacturing facilities, and everything that's related to being able to sell a product at a better price.
Right.
You've got to try and keep it as economical as possible for the end user.
You've made a good point there. I mean, you just mentioned the resources being the people and, some of the equipment used. But in this industry, we've seen so many companies using equipment that is, in a terrible state of repairs. And the human relations, of course, so much can be said about the human relations and the human resource working in this particular industry. So what needs to be done to change the current status quo?
Well, and I speak specifically from a PFERD point of view. You have to remain right up at the top of the field with regards to the state of your manufacturing facilities, and the research and development that goes into that to enable you to create products at a better price and satisfying the absolute requirement of the customer every time.
If I can maybe jump in as well, I think it's important to reskill and upskill your staff. I think we have a limited amount of resources. I think the most important of that being time, especially in the face of load shedding. So we have to keep up production, you have to keep up your production figures, utilizing your equipment to a certain extent and within a limited amount of time. So by utilizing your staff and using them and upskilling them to make sure we get the best out of them in that limited time frame is what it actually boils down to as well. So I think continuous training is very important. Not only general, we have to get to the shop floor, we have to show them, continuously training them how to develop, how to actually read circumstances and understand their processes, and to improve it to a very large extent as well.
Why are we not seeing a maximization of that? I mean, upskilling and reskilling of staff. Is it because some companies are wary of, training their own labor resources, in favor of profits?
No, I think we are actually still seeing it, simply. To be totally honest with you, we, as a company, we have a training academy where we actually offer this service, and we can see people in the metalworking industry actually grabbing this opportunity and still upskilling their staff. So they are taking this opportunities, they're making use of it. It's not just only for the company's benefit, but also for individuals. Ergonomics is playing a massive part nowadays. There's a lot of regulations, health and safety, that we have to take into consideration. And staff and companies are making use of these facilities to upskill their staff. Okay. So I do think it is something that's in the metalworking industry. You see it. It is something that happens on a continuous basis as well.
All right. Let's talk about how, research and development will be important, particularly for abrasive manufacturers, at least in this year.
I think if we once again have a look at utilization of your resources, if you have a specific product or specific task at hand, you have to try and do that in a small amount of time. So by having a look at newer developments, upgraded products, to try and do this process at a much faster pace in reducing the production steps. So by reducing these production steps, you manage to get this product out at a much faster rate.
All right. Now, Dennis, let's talk about how sales reps play a vital and a crucial role in addressing some of the challenges faced by customers.
Sure. Every customer that you have has got a series of pains or problems that they have in their industry.
Right.
And to get the sales rep to be able to go to their relevant facility, completely understand exactly what their business objectives are, as well as becoming a role player in their businesses as well. You have to be technically sharp and understand exactly what their problems are, and you have to dig to find what their problems are. So you have to be trained in such a way that you can suck out that information from the customer to see exactly what his pain is. And sometimes he has a problem and he actually doesn't know what it is. They rely on your expertise to be able to go in there, visualize what their issues are, and have the people there that are trained well enough to be able to say, I can fix this for you and I'll show you how to do it, and you move on. And that's what we supply to the industry.
So from what you've gathered, is this trend likely to rise?
The trend of having to give them information. Yes, I'm sure it is. As technology moves on, with the fourth industrial revolution and the advancement of technology coming out all the time, their problems are constantly becoming new. And the problem they had last week that we've helped them fix, you get a new one. So it is definitely rising, specifically now as things get more complicated with robotics and the need to do things safely and efficiently. Yeah,
sure. We'll get to the point of robotics in a moment. But I quite like the example you've made of customers having a problem, but they don't actually know what the problem is. So, and it prompting you as the sales rep to sort of diagnose the problem. So will that likely lead to a misdiagnosis of a problem because the customer doesn't know what the problem is?
Sometimes the customer might see it as a misdiagnosis, but we are trained in such a way that we can zoom in on problems. And the longer you've had a rep in a specific environment, the more experience he has, and sometimes you can see a customer's issue when you walk through the door. You can have a look at it and you can say, oh, the problem is there. And he's talking about something else. And eventually you have to come up with a method, or sort of a psychological method of getting them to see things that way. And that's the difficult part of the training. You upskill the reps to do that.
Got you. Now, Hans, let's talk about the role of technology and the use of robotics in this industry.
I think robotics in general, if we have a look a couple of years ago, it would have most probably been limited to material handling or welding applications, etc. But we have seen onboarding of automation to a very large extent, and I think we will see it more going forward. I think with we have to free up our capital, our people, our human resources to do other tasks. The advantages that you've got with robotics, it can range from a very highly automated process robotics setup, basically the full production facility, but it can go as far as to a standard type of bot application where routine tasks can be handled by automated or 4IR smart technology. And from there on, you can see it will change. It will free up your human, where you actually need more of human involvement, certain processes, and you can actually utilize it more. So I think it is something that will start increasing. The important bit is to understand that it's not only the capital investment that you're making, but your consumable, your long-term effect of your full process should be taken into consideration to actually see this return on that capital investment for that robotics or the automated processes.
Hans, the robotics discussion is I suppose, a very difficult conversation to have, because in some instances it can be read as the rise of AI and robotics comes at a cost of jobs and employment.
It can, but not necessarily. I think it plays also a part with upskilling again. We have to understand that there's different roles involved when we talk about robotics. It's not necessarily just putting in a robot where human used to be, but it's upskilling and reskilling that person to either manage that robot, do the programming behind it, and use them in other departments. So in a certain way, you actually broaden that staff member's horizons to actually be useful in different departments as well, to a very large extent.
All right, gentlemen, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, that was Dennis Phillips and Hannes Northman, and they've been speaking to us about the top trends for the metalworking industry in 2023.